What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Hands-On channel. I'm sure you've heard by now that a lot of the stuff we've been talking about, whether that be World War III, possibilities of civil war, civil unrest, economic collapse, all of those things are happening right now, or we're on the cusp of every one of those things happening all at once. Everything all at once by design. Okay? Cloward and Piven strategy, overwhelm the system. It's being applied, in my opinion, globally now. It's not just a regional or national issue anymore. They're using this Cloward and Piven strategy to overwhelm the system of the world. So, have you heard what's going on over in Europe right now? Well, if you listen to the United States mainstream media, it's just a bunch of right-wing fanatical Europeans going crazy and throwing a fit about the immigration that's going on because, see, they're racists, right? They're a bunch of racists over there. They don't want these Muslims coming over and taking over their country. Well, if you read a little deeper and you look actually at what's really going on over there in Europe, basically there's mobs of military-age Muslim men running around the country with machetes and knives and hammers attacking the peaceful protesters. And the peaceful protesters are the ones that the cops are going after. Does that sound familiar to you? Does that sound like the exact same playbook that the Democrats used here in the United States when the Summer of Love was going on? When the Antifa people were rioting? Yes, it's exactly the same. Why and how could that be? Because the globalists are behind this whole entire thing. Guys, I think they're trying to collapse the system. These globalists that are in charge right now, not only in our country but around the world, people like Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates and George Soros and other people like that that are movers and shakers, they are afraid. They're scared to death that Donald Trump is going to win the 2024 election. So what are they doing? They're trying to collapse the entire system. So that way, even if he does win, even though they're going to cheat again, don't kid yourself, they're going to try the same old game that they tried in 2020. No doubt about it. I'm convinced 100% they're going to try to cheat their way into the first black, even though she's not really technically black, I guess. Or not African anyway. She's Jamaican, like a quarter Jamaican or an eighth Jamaican, and the rest is Indian, like dot on the head Indian. And it's interesting because, Trump is taking heat now because he called that out during that, I don't know what you call that, a press conference or an interview he had with that black group of people. And I didn't find anything wrong with what Trump said. In fact, the problem was that woman's question. It was the most offensive line of questioning, especially as an opening question, that I think I've ever heard. And if you guys notice, and I've been saying this for years, there's a double standard. I mean, it's apparent if you have eyes to see and you're awake, but most people, these days, I guess 70, 80% of the people are just walking around with their heads up their asses and they have no idea that any of this stuff's going on. So I feel it's important to risk being redundant and say these things over and over because you have to, man. You have to. Even I forget some of this stuff. They're doing so many dirty things, dirty globalist things, dirty communist things to this country that I can't keep up with all of them. So it helps me to remind myself, they're doing that too. Oh, yeah, they're doing that too. Oh, yeah, they were the ones that told you inflation doesn't exist. Oh, it's transitory. Remember Janet Yellen and all the Democrats saying that it was just temporary and transitory? Well, now it's going off the rails. They've been lying about their job report numbers for months and months and months. They've been having, every time they put one out, the mainstream media grabs the White House's data and they're like, oh, look, another great month of jobs here. And then quietly in the background, whoever it is, a CBO or whoever it is, I don't remember the name of the organization, but the people that take care of the budgeting and stuff like that, they're saying, no, actually, you over-exaggerated all of those job numbers. They're all lower than what you've been saying. And so They've run us off the cliff, guys. I hope that many of you, like myself, have been preparing for the inevitability of SHTF collapse. I don't know how it's going to happen. I got into a little bit of a debate with a guy in the comments section on one of my videos. He made a really great point about, basically he was saying that my scenario video that I've been putting out, the one where I'm talking about basically a Civil War type premise where, they steal an election, everything goes crazy, economy collapses, all this, right? And it leads us into an SHTF situation. Well, this guy's argument, and he made a valid point, was that the globalists will never let that happen. They will never let that happen, because if they did that, they would lose all control, all power. And they don't want to do that. They want to keep their foot on your neck. Who was it that said that? If you want to know what the future looks like, it's a communist boot stamping on your face forever. I believe it was George Orwell or somebody that said that. I'm paraphrasing. I may be a little off. I may have added communists in there, but you get the idea. These guys want to enslave us. They want to take everything away from us. And this commenter, he was dead on accurate. They want to do this through incrementalism over the next 40 years so that you and I will be long gone by then. And there'll be some other, 5 other generations that they'll have a chance to sink their teeth into in the communist indoctrination system they call public education. Yuri Bezmenov talked about this years and years ago, like in the early 1980s. He was talking about how they would come in and they would use subversion. And they would get into and infiltrate all of your institutions. And they have done that. Who is they? The communists, the globalists. Because if you haven't noticed, the globalists love the communist business model. They'll even admit it. They even admit that their plan looks a lot like a Chinese-style communist government. Now, let me ask you, as a freedom-loving American, or someone, I've got some people that watch from over in Australia and New Zealand. If you're an Aussie or a Kiwi, what do you think about that? Do you want to live under globalism, under the boot of communism for the rest of your life? Another one of my great commenters, I'm not going to say his name because I really don't have his permission to do so, but he was telling me in one of those comments on the last video that basically he loved my 1022. He's like, yeah, I remember back when we were allowed to have 1022s until 1997 when the communists came in and took them away from us. For our own good, they said. Right? For our own good. And I'll never forget that. I was still, a pretty young guy in my early 20s, I think. But I was paying enough attention that I noticed when they were putting on the TV those Australians turning in their guns and having like bulldozers come down the street and run them over, because it's not enough for them to turn them in. They have to make a big public display about it, look, we're not only taking your guns, we're crushing them in front of you on television, so you'll know you'll never get them back. And I think there are some, exceptions, like you could perhaps have a bolt action gun, but you have to keep the bolt separate in a separate safe, or else, you're doing something illegal over there in Australia and New Zealand. Just unbelievable, man. I mean, Aussies and Kiwis, they're tough people, man. They're like Americans. And, I can't imagine how that situation was allowed to happen. The only thing I can think is that, and the reason it hasn't happened here, is because we have it enshrined in our Second Amendment, right? The right to bear arms. They probably didn't have anything like that over in Australia and New Zealand. And that's the only reason that we still have our guns. But let me tell you something. Kamala is the most anti-gun candidate I've ever seen, okay? Look at her record. She wants to ban everything, all guns, okay? They may pretend at first it's just semi-automatic AR-15s and AK-47s. Bullshit. They want them all. And that's how they'll start out, just like the globalists. They'll say, well, you don't really need a 30-round magazine, do you? And they'll ban 30-round magazines to start with. And then maybe they'll ban anything that can accept a 30-round magazine. And then through incrementalism, over time, enough time will go by and people will just accept it. There'll be no revolution. That's one thing that I've really it's very disappointing for me to say this to you guys. I wish it wasn't this way, but I just don't have any faith in my fellow Americans anymore as far as being real patriots when the shit hits the fan. I think we're too drunk on comfort, all of us, including myself. I love that. I'm spoiled to air conditioning. I'm spoiled to ice. I'm spoiled to, being able to veg out on my computer and recharge my batteries before I come out here on the farm and work hard and do a bunch of dirt work and trash work and stuff like that. I'm spoiled to that stuff. Now, some people, that's all they ever do is that sort of stuff. And, that's not a good balance, but I think it's necessary to be able to go home and chill out and have some downtime after you've been working hard and stuff. But guys, I'm telling you, our chill out time, our relaxed time, if SHTF happens, you may not ever be able to do it again. And a lot of people are going to be very resentful. They're going to be like, what happened? How did it get this bad? Why did this happen? Because they're going to finally be waking up from the matrix. They're finally going to be rubbing the sleep out of their eyes going, wait a minute, I didn't know it was this bad. When in reality, they did know. They had every indication that things were this bad. But they just were too damned lazy or too self-centered in some cases. These people, many of these people that vote for Democrats over and over and over, and they just party line vote, many of these people are doing it for selfish reasons. They want free shit. So as long as you got the lure of free shit dangling out there in front of these people, they'll never vote any differently. They don't care about the country. They care about getting free stuff. I even heard a few people that were talking about, they went to this neighborhood and they were talking to these people and they were like, hey, what do you think about Donald Trump? And several people were like, yeah, I'm going to vote for him because he gave me them stimmy checks. They call them stimmies, stimulus checks. See? They want something for nothing. That should have never fucking happened. That was, in my opinion, a trial run of a universal basic income, or in other words, full-blown government-supported, government-sponsored communism. And we allowed it. Even myself, I cashed those checks. Why wouldn't I? I was like, man, what should I do? I had a real moral dilemma with that. I was like, what should I do? Talking to my wife about that. And I'm like, we needed the money. They had crippled my business because of the COVID lockdowns. And it wasn't that I was locked down. My business was deemed essential, so I could still run my company. And another thing, I'm the boss of my company, so I made the rule. I was like, yeah, I'm going to continue running my business. But all of my customers were being all scared and skittish of letting anyone come in. So they hurt my business. Not to mention, Biden is the most anti-oil, anti-energy president we've ever had in modern history. Oh, we got to save the environment. For what? If we all starve to death, no one's going to be here to pollute the environment anymore. So, guys, I think it's too far gone now to save it. I don't think there's going to ever be any revolution, peaceful or violent. I don't think the American people have been made uncomfortable enough. And in fact, they're drunk on their comfort. They'll never give up that comfort. They'll never give up the free stuff. My grandpa, he's now dead. He died a few years ago. Super intelligent guy. I mean, I love talking to him. He was one of the most intelligent people in my family. I could sit there and discuss different things with him, even controversial things, and he didn't get all bent out of shape. But he was a diehard Democrat, a blue dog, old school Democrat, okay? You weren't going to convince him any differently. And I asked other people in my family, I would be like, hey man, how in the hell can he be voting and happy with Barack Hussein Obama when obviously things are not going well? Obviously they're not, I just couldn't never understand it. As smart, as an intelligent guy as my grandpa was, I couldn't understand how he landed as being a party line Democrat voter, but he was. And somebody else told me in my family, they said, think about it, man. He's on a fixed income. He's on Social Security. He's on Medicaid, Medicare, whatever it is. And all of those things are coming from daddy government. So even someone like my grandpa, who grew up literally with a dirt floor and no running water inside of his house, he was a freaking sharecropper. His family were sharecroppers. And in many ways, I think they had it worse than actual slaves. They were freaking dirt poor, okay? Not a pot to piss in. I'll tell you guys some more stories about that in the future, but I mean, you would think a guy like that would want to hold on to his money and not have it be taxed to death. But once he got to that age where he was now drawing those benefits, he didn't want to do anything that could possibly compromise or risk that. And he believed the hype. He believed those commercials where they were showing Republicans kicking grandma and grandpa off the side of a cliff in a wheelchair. That's a real commercial. They ran that back in the 90s. So, and then you got the other side, the Republicans. They're so mealy-mouthed, and they're so, when they do have power, they don't do anything to correct course. It's just a series of oh, well, we can't do that. That'd be wrong. That's not morally correct for us to do that. Just because the Democrats do it doesn't mean we can do it. And they're standing there on their principles and morals, which you should do to a degree. But at the same time, when the gloves are off, the freaking gloves are off. And the only people in the country that don't seem to realize that are the establishment Republicans. They're going along to get along, not rocking the boat, don't want to cause any waves. That's why we're screwed, guys. That's why we're screwed. And, I think about people like Mitch McConnell. How in the hell does that guy keep getting reelected? He's probably more senile than Biden is, and yet he keeps getting reelected. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. The Constitution was written for a moral and intelligent people. People that had the time, the privilege, the knowledge to go and read and understand what your rights are. And today, we're a nation of retards, it seems like. And what's worse is a lot of the younger people are like Beavis and Butthead, and they think that's actually cool. I swear, idiocracy is playing out before our eyes. Lord help us. And that's a big part of the problem. We've abandoned Christianity. We've turned our backs on morals and religion. And now we've got this pseudo-religion in there that's accepting all of these things like LGBTQ stuff and gay marriages and all these other things that if you're a real true Christian, that's morally wrong. Now, does that mean that person should be forbidden from the church? No, but it means that they shouldn't be elevated to the role of preacher or pastor or reverend or any of that sort of stuff, at least in my opinion. I mean, just look at what's going on over in the Olympics right now. They made a mockery of the Last Supper, and then they tried to deny it and tried to say, oh, no, it was art. No. We got to draw the line somewhere, guys. Or else someone else is going to draw the line for us. So I'm reminded of that old song. You got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. Unreal. We're on the verge of economic collapse, World War III, and potentially civil war, or at least civil unrest, even right here in the United States of America, but I think on a global level. And that's what the globalists want, because then they can come in and crack down on all of us, take our guns, lock us up in FEMA camps, all the stuff you've been hearing about. And then anytime they come out with some new vaccine, no matter what it is, you'll have to take it. You won't have a choice. You'll have to be living in one of their 15-minute cities. You think they're going to let me live out here on my 100 acres? Hell no, that's too much freedom. They don't want people to be able to grow their own food and prep or do anything like that. So guys, heed my warning. Now is the time. Get that garden going. I mean, it's probably too late to get a garden going, but hopefully you've got one going. Don't forget about it. Go out there, water it. I know it's hot right now. Make sure you spend some time out there picking weeds and getting those fresh fruit and vegetables off the vine. Get some rabbits, get some quail, get some chickens. If you've got enough land, get goats, get sheep, get cattle, whatever you're into, get it now. Because before long, they're not going to allow us to do it, or at least that's my prediction. They're pushing everything toward this 17 sustainable goals, and none of that takes into account my property rights, my liberty, my freedom. None of that. The Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights, more specifically, is the only thing stopping them, holding back the floodgates of globalism around the freaking world. It's the United States. We're the ones holding down the fort, and most people here are freaking retarded, like I said. So what are we going to do? We could give up, I guess. We could not prepare. We could just wait and, fall into line, and do exactly what the globalists say. Or you can know your rights. You could study the Constitution. You could always carry a pocket Constitution with you. You could enforce your rights. You could make sure no one violates your rights. You can make sure that you always have private property rights. You can join together with your neighbors. You could talk to them about uncomfortable things like politics. And I'm going to get on to you guys for just a second, okay? My audience. Most of the time, I love you guys. You guys are a great audience. And I don't want to lose anybody by saying this, but I'll be honest, I am a little bit disappointed because you're not sharing the videos. Most of you give me a thumbs up. A lot of you come in there and comment, and that does help, and I appreciate that. But you got to share the videos. And I know why you don't share them. You're afraid that one of your friends will hear me ranting and raving about right-wing politics or whatever and how anti-communist I am and how anti-globalist I am, and you're afraid that they're going to judge you or that your work is going to fire you or whatever for sharing a freaking video, even though you may not agree with me 100%. You're just trying to get feedback from your friend. Well, I'm telling you, the time for sitting around being quiet while everyone else is making an ass of themselves is over. It's time for the adults to stand up, okay? I'm asking you guys, share these videos. If you think I made a valid point, come into the comments. Let's go back and forth. If you think I'm totally off my rocker, come into the comments and let's talk about this. If you think the collapse will never happen, let me know. Because I'm just one guy out here trying to build myself an opportunity to live the freest life I can possibly live. A lot of people don't want to put in the work for that sort of thing. I get it. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of sweating. It's a lot of mosquitoes, poison ivy, chiggers, ticks, you name it. You got to put up with a lot of stuff. But I think it's worth it. I think that's the American dream. For me, that is the American dream. Being able to have my own piece of America and run and have the Constitution and the Bill of Rights be the law of the land on my land. I hope you got something similar going on, or you got dreams like that where you can get out of the city, because I think cities are going to be ready-made prisons. Maybe they already are prisons, and most people just don't know that yet, right? But it would be really easy to put a wall up around all these cities. And think about it. Every major metro in the United States, I believe, has a beltway around it, a loop around the city. How hard do you think it'd be to put up some 12-foot tall chain link fence with some razor wire on top of that all the way around that loop? And you just won't be allowed outside of that main metro area anymore, because they're going to rewild the rest of the United States, see? Dumb all over. So that's why I come out here and I do work on things that I know are real right here on my property, because I can see the instant results when I'm done. I can see, not instant, I misspoke there. I can see the results when I'm finished, and that makes me feel good. So go out there, get something done, but try to convert someone, man. Try to bring someone over to our side. Try to bring someone over to the side of logic and reason, and get them out of money for nothing. Because in every example of every person I've ever known that has been on welfare or some sort, on the government tit of in some sort of way, it has not worked out well for them. It usually ends up trapping them in that situation. Like I was mentioning earlier with my grandpa, that's the reason he kept voting Democrats, because he felt trapped. He had no choice. He was scared to death that maybe they were telling the truth. Of course, he didn't know, I guess, that they've been lying to him for the last 50 years. And again, not that the Republicans are perfect. They lie sometimes too, but I think they're the lesser of two evils. They're definitely better than the people that are right now pushing for all this anti-traditional American value agenda. The LGBTQ stuff, the men and women's sports. I mean, you name it, it's just unbelievable. I didn't watch it because I'd never watched the Olympics, but after I saw what they were doing with their opening ceremony, I didn't watch the opening ceremony, but I heard about it, through the headlines. After I heard about that, I was like, no, I'm not going to watch any of it. But then I heard another headline where they had a biological male beat the hell out of a woman in a so-called boxing match. Like I said, these people are retarded, and they're trying to make everyone else go along with their retardation and just act like it's normal. I refuse to do it. Anyway, I think we gone on long enough here, guys. Let me know what you're thinking about down in the comments. How are you preparing for World War III, Civil War, economic collapse, perfect storm, all hitting you at once? How are you preparing for that? There's rumors of a cyber attack coming like later in the week. Oh boy, there's rumors that Iran is about to engage Israel in the next couple of days, and it's going to be a big deal. It's going to suck us all into World War III. I think it's very likely, so you better gas up your tanks, man. I noticed that yesterday or the day before when I went and got fuel, gas was low. It wasn't under $3 a gallon, but it was like $3.09 or something. It was the lowest I've seen it in a while. So I went ahead and topped off my tanks and my 5-gallon gas tanks for my generators and stuff like that, because if this thing does happen with Iran, they're not going to be able to hold those gas prices down. It will shoot. I mean, it might be $5, $6, $10 a gallon. So buy it now while you can and store it properly, and then you'll be able to go a little bit longer. That's what prepping's all about. I hope you're doing it. Appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, I stand for liberty to the bitter end. I hope you do too.